This is Gemara Sanhedrin Daf Lamed, and all of learning for the month. The month of Teves has been generously sponsored by a close friend of the Daf as a Zchus Aliyas Neshama for Aryeh and Rav Ya'akov Siyata Deshmaya. As we continuously plow through Daf by Daf, Amir Tashem, the learning should bring Rabbi Aryeh and Rav Ya'akov an incredible Aliyas Neshama, as well as Amir Tashem. All the learning should be an incredible Zchus Refuah Shalema for Tinaik ben Miriam Ahuva, that B'siyat Deshmaya, the baby was able to come home. And hopefully the continued Schusim Harabim, the Koyach HaTorah, should continue being the ultimate vehicle of Schusim, of bringing Yerefuah Shlema Gemura to Tinaik ben Miriam Ahuva. We are holding about 15 lines, 20 lines in the bottom of Chav Testament base. The first word on the line is Vishalchi. And when the Gemara says, Hoide b'mitaltali v'kanu miyadai, continues the Gemara discussing cases of Haidah, cases of admission being made in the presence of Edim. Says the Gemara, if there is a Haidah, if the one who owes someone money admits, b'mitaltalin, he admits that he owes mitaltalin, v'kanu miyadai, and he makes a kinyan. Says the Gemara, in such a scenario, kaisvin, the Edim that witness such an admission are allowed to write down without asking anything further. Vimlav, but if there was no kinyan, ein kaisvin. Continues the Gemara, that's if it's an admission of mitaltalin. Bimikarkai, if it's an admission of karka, v'loi kanu miyadai, and there's no kinyan mai. So amemar amar ein kaisvin, mar sutra amar kaisvin. V'elchasa, kaisvin, and the lacha is that even though there was no kinyan, but the fact that the admission was in karka, we paskin like Marzutra, that you're able to, Edim could write down this admission. Continues the Gemara, Ravina ikla lidamharya. Ravina went to Damharya, Amarli Ravdimi bar Ravuna midamharya liravina. So he said to Ravina, one second, I'm sorry, lost the place over here. He said to, again, one more time. He said to Ravina, Metaltali visnayu beinayu. If one admitted to metaltalin, and they are in his possession, visnayu beinayu, and they are extant at the time of his admission, mai. And the question obviously is, do these metaltalin take on a larger form, similar to karka? Amar le kimikarkoi dami. Rafashi Amar. No. Even though it's true, they're around, but since you still have to collect them, they don't have a din of karka. Continues the Gemara, there was a admission document, which was not written, Amar lanu kasva v'chasmu v'havula. It was not written that the one who owes the money said, sign it and give it to the one I owe money to. Such a clause was not written. Could we say that they were supposed to write that or not? This is the din of Reish Lakish. Now what? Reish Lakish. Says Reish Lakish, we have a chazaka. The Eidim do not sign an ashtar unless the person is a gadol. Similarly, it's not the exact same case, but just like we don't sign unless the person is a gadol, so too we would not let him sign unless he told them directly to sign it. So if we have such a document, we could assume that that the person was told to sign it. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. Could there be something that the halacha we do not know and the seifrim know it? Says the Gemara, there are many dayanim who don't know this halacha. How can we assume that the sefer does? Proves the Gemara that no, the seifrim indeed know of such halacha. Continues the Gemara as we wrap up Chav Testament Beis, there was a document of admission in which there were only two Eidim that signed, and it says on it, Dichrin Pitgama. This is recording. Pitgam is a word. The Kol Lishni, as we turn over to Lamed Amid Aleph continues the Gemara v'chol yishane dvei dina, and included within are all the other terminologies that are supposed to be in documents. But it did not have written in it. It was not written that there were 3 dayanim and one is no longer here. So the question is, if it's missing this critical clause in the document, will that cause an issue? Says the Gemara, so Ravina thought that this is the case of Reish Lakish, that we assume, just like you don't sign the Elke Nasa Gadol, just like you don't sign unless he told him to, so too over here, must be that there was an original Bezdin of 3. No, it's not necessarily a raya. Maybe there's a scenario of a Bezdin Tayin, a case in which a Bezdin could make a mistake. Amr Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Ikasaba Beidina. Says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, if the document says we are the Bezdin, Sulo Sarech, nothing more needs to be written. Why? Because if there was only 2 dayanim, they would never have right a none. They would never write that we are a Beidina. Asking Marva Doma Bezdin Chatzafu. Wait, maybe this was a Bezdin of Chutzpah. Damar Shmuel. Shnayim Shadanu Dinein Dinel Shnegru Bezdin Chatzif. So there is that type of terminology. So maybe this is such a scenario that there were 2 dayanim and it's really a Bezdin Chatzif. Says the Gemara, the Chatzif Beidina Derabana. It says in it is a Bezdin of Rabbanim, and therefore the Rabbana, Ashi, and therefore we could assume that it's a kosher Bezdin. But Delmer Rabbana Dvei Rav Ashi Kidishmol Svirle, they'll say by Bamerlan Ravana Ashi, says the Gemara, you know why? Because the document says, and Rav Ashi told us, which proves that it must have been there was an original kosher Bezdin, as was evident if Rav Ashi actually told them to write such a document. Taner Rabbana continues the Gemara, Amerlan Echad Ani Re'iti Avichem. 3 lines on the wide lines. If someone says, I saw your father hiding money, she'et in ma'is, b'shida deva migdal in a basket, a carriage, etc. V'amar, shal ploini him, and the father said it belongs to ploini, shal ma'is sheni, and his sheni v'bayis, lo yamer klum. If the place that the father hid the money is in the house, that's meaningless. But b'sadeh, then dvar of kayamin. If it's in a field, then we listen to him. Why? Klalo shal davar, the first one on kosher, b'yada lila dvar of kayamin. Only if the son could have taken it, the fact that he didn't, only then would create such a level of ne'emanis. Continues the Gemara, Hare Sharai on the second line is Havi and Shetmim Ma'is B'Shid Deva Meida. V'Amar Jablainim Shamay Zesheni and Imka Ma'is Devreim Kayamim Imka Muadin. Then Loi Amar Klum. Says the Gemara, if Kimaisers, if he's telling them what to do, then Tvar Kayam Bim Kimarim. But the father seemed to have been deceiving them, then Loi Amar Klum. Third case, Ishaisa Mitzayir Almay Shenich Loi Aviv Ubabal Chaloim Bamar Loi Kach Lachem V'Makam Zlanim Shamay Zesheni Ein Zeh Yamaisa V'Amru Dver Chaloim Zloi Me'elim V'Amid. The fact that you have a dream does not have relevance to Allah, and therefore you will not be able to prove it based just on that. Continues the Gemara, quoting the Mishnah, Shtayim Amar Zakai. On one says he is not chayiv, then he is chayiv, whereas 2 of them said, whatever. The Gemara will explain the exact case, but this is how we announce and how we decide a verdict in Bezdin. Says the Gemara, 8 lines down, 2 dots. Mechtav hechvik asi. How do they write the verdict? Rav Yechlan Amar Zakai. Rish Lakish Amar Pliny Mizakin. Rav Yechlan says we just write simply, you are Zakai, you are not Chayv. Rish Lakish says no. We write Pliny Mizakin or Pliny Mechayvin. We write what the judges actually said. Rav Lazar Amar Devarayim Nizdaku. Says Rav Lazar Devarayim Nizdaka Ploni. Through the words of the judges, such and such is not Chayiv. Devarayim Nizdaka Ploni. My beinayu. Beinayu l'shlume iu mas manta. Says Gemara, you know the chalik between these different cases is can the judge that argues pays for a share owed to the Bezdin along with the other dayanim? The first opinion that says Zakai Mishalem. According to Rabbi Yechon, it says that we write he is not Zakai Mishalem. That judge is obligated to pay. Ulaman damar plenty zakim plenty mechayvin loy mishalehim. Says Maraway, Ulaman damar zakim mishalehim lema leho ilidi seitinu aton lami nami loy mishalem miton. Says Mar, why is that true? Let him tell the other day on him. If you listen to me, you would also not be paying, because then he would have ruled correctly. Why is he obligated to pay? Rather, the two judges that were wrong are required to pay for that other judge's share. What's taking the love? What do you mean? If I wasn't here, you wouldn't have a bezdin at all. So why are we going to be chayiv for the fact that the other dayanim won? Fundamental machlekes, how careful we have to be about that maybe our words will go awry. Rav Elazar Islay, Demar Islay, Demar Hilchasi Yochim Dereim, Nizdaku Ploni. That's Lamaisa. What they write that such a person is Nizdaka. It's the cleanse himself from this story. Continues the Gemara, Gamru es Adavar Hayu Machnis. That when they finish donning up the case, they would bring them in. Says the Gemara, Laman. They're there. What do you mean they'll bring them in? Ela le'edim keman to look Rav Nosson the Tanya. The edus could combine. They have to both testify together. So we're saying not like Rav Nosson. Who's Rav Nosson? So that was Yeshua ben Karcha. That was the first two opinions. Rav Nosson Aimer Shaimin Devar Shalzeh Yoy Mukshiava Chaver Lamachar Shaimin Es Devarai. So the fact that we're saying that no, we have to bring all the Eidim in shows us we're not going like Rav Nosson. Says the Gemara Loi. It's no Raya Loi Lamim Lacharili. I'll tell you Loi Lamim Labali Dinim. We're bringing in the Bali Dinim. Rav Nechemya He Titania. Who's Rav Nechemya? Rav Nechemya Aimer Kachayim Manhigin Shal Nikiya Das Shavushalayim. Such is the minhag of the Nikiya Adas. Those of the pure-minded Dayanim in Yerushalayim, Machnisin l'Balidinim v'Sheimin Devrayim, they would bring in the Balidinim and listen to what they say. Then they bring in the Eidim. And then what would they do? They would bring the Eidim. They would send everyone outside. And the Dayanim would don up the case. They would go back and forth figuring out what the story was. Then they would bring everyone back in. Says Mar, wait. It says you bring in the Eidim. This shows us that Eidim have to repeat what they said. It says Mar, Kirav Nasan. So now that we came on to this topic almost from the background, says the Gemara Gufa. Let's go a little bit deeper. What is the machlokes whether the Eduzan is Mitzarefes or not? Says the Gemara, if you want, we could say Kra, on the money that this one is giving Eidos. This one is not giving Eidos. And therefore, since each of the Eidim are donning up something differently, you cannot combine their Eiduyos, and therefore they all have to come in and testify together. Vedach, what does Yeshua ben Karcha hold? You know, the testifying stam and money, and therefore the Eiduyos could combine. Another teretz, that was a svara. What's the pasuk say? Who ate ra yada? Says the pasuk, and he is an aid, either he saw or he knows. Vitani returned to the rice of Mimasha Shenemar. The Yakam aid. Any idea? Do we not know? Shu echad. Do we not know that he's one? Matam alaymer echad. Aid echad. Zebon av l'chol makayim. Zebon av kol makayim Shenemar. Aid arikan shnayim. A famous Josh. Why? Why does the Torah say specifically there's one aid? Lamimar aid the chazut arvayu kechad. Vedach have aid oira yada mikol makim. So the first shita is what? Excuse me. So why does he use the terminology of chad? They have to see it together. Both edim have to testify together. We do not combine their eduyos. Shua ben Karcha says no. From the fact that it says v'eda ra yada, mikol makam, even if they witness it not simultaneously, still their edos could combine. Ve'in eduyon mitzkayemes 5 lines to the bottom. Bebezin ashilu shneim ke'echad, until they yidu, excuse me, shneim ke'echad. Rav Nosson Haimer sheimin dvar shal zeh hayoim shavachaver lemachar sheimim devarav. And then the next day we hear the next aid. Continues the Gemara b'maika bifli. So what exactly is this machlekes that we're saying between Rav Nosson and Tanakama? Whether we listen to their eidos ke'echad or not? Ibai sema svara, ibai sema kra, ibai sema svara mar savra echad ki asi l'shvua asi l'mayna lo yasi. The echad could only be utilized for a shvua, but echad cannot be utilized to b'chayamani v'dech atu ki asu b'hadi adadi b'chad buma kamisadi ella mistarfina le'achanami l'starfu. Just like they combine over there, they'll combine over here. V'ibai sema, says the Gemara kra, that's the svara. Given us and he says the Vasik, if you don't give testimony, you'll bear the sin as we turn over to Lamanam Beis. Says the Gemara to Kuli Alma. Everyone holds if Yeshua ben Karcha, or Nosson, excuse me, as well as the Tanakama, who to Kuli Alma, Krabanan to Pli Alid Yeshua ben Karcha Vacha. And over here is what? Ba'koshe Hagada Liraya Kamilki. What's the machlekes? The machlekes is whether the testifying is compared by the Torah as Re'iyah, as seeing the case. Mar Savar Makshina Godel Re'iyah, Mar Savar Lo Makshina Godel Re'iyah. Shemin El Yaakov Avi Mishtakid, continues the Gemara. What's the halacha? Shemin El Yaakov Avi Mishtakid, who was working tirelessly Alid Rav Yesi Rav Chanina Lemisbechai to give him smicha. Look, Mistaya Milsa, but Lamaisa, he wasn't being successful. One day, the other halacha of Yeshua ben Karcha. Is there anyone that knows halacha like Yeshua ben Karcha? Aylai, Amarlei, Rav Shimon el Yaakov. You know who knows halacha like Yeshua ben Karcha? Rav Shimon ben el Yaakov. Din Yada. This one, Rav Chanina, no, Din Yada. Amarlei, Lema Ezu. Let him say over what he knows. Amarlei, Lismachei. First, give him smicha. Lismachei mar bereisha. First, give him smicha, and then he'll say over what he knows. Sabchu amarlei b'ni emer loi ketzat shamas. Tell me, how exactly did you hear? Amarlei, he responded, kach shamati. Shamaydi Yeshua ben Karcha Rav Nosson. Yeshua ben Karcha was made to Rav Nosson that what the Eidim do not have to testify all at one time. They can testify zeh acher zeh. Amar says Rav Yochanan it's Lazeh Hutzrachti. I needed this piece of information. Of course, I knew that Yeshua ben Karcha holds like Rav Nosson. Why? If the Iker, they actually saw the Eidos together, Yeshua ben Karcha, Yeshua ben Karcha said, you don't need it. Hagadmi Bayu, would he actually have to tell us? Testifying. So of course, now the Gemara is honing in on that which we said and elaborating that there's really two different details going on over here. There's the Re'iyah, and then there's Haggadah. Says the Gemara, if the Re'iyah has to be done together, then of course the Haggadah would have to be done together. Amar lei, Hayav Alias Allah Sadar. 4 lines down says the Gemara, okay, you're right, but Lamaisi, you gave him smicha, and therefore Lo Hadar, we're not going to back out of that which we said. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rav Zera, Shema Mina, Gavra Rabba Kimat Samech Samech. That once someone gets smicha, you get smicha, and you don't undo a smicha. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rav Yechia bar Avin, Amar Rav Alachi Yeshua ben Karcha, Bein Bekarkais, Bein Betaltlin. We paskin like Yeshua ben Karcha in all scenarios, whether they're giving eidos regarding karka, whether it's regarding metaltlin. Ula Amar says Ula Alachi Yeshua ben Karcha bekarkais. No, we only paskin like Yeshua ben Karcha with karka, avaloi be metaltlin. However, we do not pass like Rav Shimon Karcha with regard to metalton. Amar le Abaya halacha. The fact that you're saying we pass like Rav Shimon Karcha in that case, in other cases, mechlal that infers the peligi. But he said that they're masking with regard to Eidos Karka. V'tani Rav Yidi bar Avin. And Rav Yidi bar Avin learned, B'nezikin devei karna, with regard to Nezikin, devei karna, as they learned in the yeshiva of Karna, Moedecham Rav Shimon Karka be'Eidos Bechar. That where they moeded, not just be'Eidos Karka, but by Bechar. Be'Eidos Karka and by Karka. Be'Eidos Chazaka. So says the V'chein Shebabein V'Shebabas. Similarly, regarding testimony, regarding if someone is a ben or a bas, so what do we see? They don't only, we see that they're only arguing with regarding metalton, whereas other areas they agree. Answers the Gemara, Gavar Agar Karamis, what's your kasha? Mar Savar Pligi or Mar Savar Loi Pligi. They have a machlekes between Ula and the Rabba or Vidi Baravin, whether there is a machlekes or not. Says the Gemara, what was that last case? Mai v'chein bebenu bebas. What's the machlekes? If the machlekes is that someone says they're trying to give edus whether a ben or a bas is a gadol gedayla. So someone says about a girl that what? I saw one hair on her back and one hair on her krisa. And based on that they want to say she's a gedayla, chatzi davar v'chatzi edu yasu. Says the Gemara, how can you combine? This is half of the matter, half of the edus. Why? Because you have two edim say that they saw two shtei sayros. El echad amar shtayim begabav, echad amar shtayim bekresa. So we have two different edim. One saying there were two hairs on the back, one says two hairs on the abdomen, and that's where we want to combine the edus. And that was the end of that brisa. Amar Rav Yosef. And we wrap up today's share going back to whether we paskin like Rav Shimon Karcha regarding Karka. Amar Rav Yosef. Ana mina mishaydu ula lachik Rav Shimon Karcha beim karkais beim metalton. V'rabbanan ta'asim mechuza Amar Amri. Amar Zim Shem the Rabbi karkais and avaloi beim metalton. Shem machlekes whether it's only karka or not. Says the Gemara. Rav l'tmei Amar Rav Hayda be'echad. Hayda achar Hayda. One admission following the next. Hayda achar halva mitzdarfi or Hayda after halva. It's combining, whereas halva achar halva or halva achar Hayda loy mitzdarfi. Only they will combine by the Haydas, not by the halvayos. So Ashkei Rav Nachman, Bar Yitzchak Rav Huna B'Rav Yeshua Amar Lei, Ma'ishna. What is the chilik in these cases? Ma'ishna that what halva achar halva delay timonika chazi. Hi look chazi. Hi look chazi. Hi, as we saw earlier today, that they're not testifying about the same detail. Hayda achar hayda nami. I'm going to come hi. Kami hi lo kami hi. Says the Gemara, no. You know why? The testimonies combined in such a scenario in which the Amarle Lahai Basra, the last 8 says, regarding the money that I'm admitting, admit me nami. Kame Pliny, admit in front of Pliny, and therefore we have both Edu doing said together. Says Mara, 1 second, Akate Basra Yada Kamila Yada. I don't understand. The last 8 knows, and the first 8 does not know. The Hadar says, Gemara Azal Amar Le, the case is, Lekama, he told the first guy, Haimana Dodile Kamach, Odile Nami, Kame Pliny. And therefore both Edim are aware that they're both the same Eidos, and that's the reason why they will combine. Says the Gemara, Amar Le, Tanuach Taitoch, Shes Nachta Es Taiti. Your mind should be at ease because you made my mind at ease, giving him a tremendous yashakayach for clarifying exactly what the case was. But Amar Le, my nichuta. Whoa, what's going on over here? You're making it sound like he explains what's going on. My nichuta. What do they do? They swung an axe. Meaning they asked if this should be a case of Alida Achar Alva. And therefore says the Gemara, it should not be the same. Concludes the Gemara, Amar Le, Hainu Dishmiya Li Alaicho, Deramitu Diklo Zakifu Lechu. This is what people say about you, that you shut down trees and you replant them. that what? Even after we answer a kasha, you come back with more kashas. So finally, what's the lamaisa? Ner damri ben adachar ida ben adachar alva ben alvachar alva ben alvachar ida, in all four permutations. Mitzdarfus keman kirishua ben karcha. That's how the Gemara concludes. Pick it up from here. B'siyata dishmai.